Hey kids, if you've never seen a Subaru engine, here is one. I'm gonna document my adventure as I change out the head gaskets, among other things in this. What we have is a 2007 Subaru Forester. It's got the 2.5 liter H 4-cylinder engine, also known as a boxer engine. And the way that's a little bit different than a lot of 4-cylinders is it's not an inline design where your head sits on top of the block in the middle and fires up vertically. It's the H4, it's horizontal, meaning if you look down there, you see one of the plugs. There's the second plug. So there's 2 cylinders on each side, and they fire straight out the side of the block. There's your other plugs right there. They call it a boxer engine because if you were to look at it running from above, the pistons are firing out the sides left and right like a pair of fists on each side. So that's why it's called a boxer engine. So the history behind this was we got this back in July, maybe. I know I put this picture up on Facebook. So the first real problem we noticed was the low coolant, and you can see it's empty again. At the first we thought we just missed something when we bought it new, and so spent about 2 days total burping the air out of the system, running it. Coolant levels were holding steady, and the heat was working, so thought it had just been neglected, had low coolant. The next thing that happened was the check engine light, and the great gentleman at Far North Rover let me borrow one of their code readers, and it was a misfire on cylinder 3. Well, as you look back, cylinder 3 is the one back there. So pulled first cleared the code and drove it some more, and it came back. So pulled the plug wire to pull the plug and checked that out, and that was just saturated in oil, as was the plug, and it wasn't in great shape anyways. It's 78,000 miles on this engine, which isn't the end of its life by any means, but it's got some maintenance that needs done. So oil all over the plug wire, down in the spark plug socket there. So we said, okay, we've got a valve cover leak, and specifically the plugs sit down inside there, and so there's the valve cover gasket, and then there's a set of ring gaskets that go around to seal each spark plug well. Obviously those gaskets go bad, you get oil in there, and it's fouling up your plug. It's not firing right. So clean that up a little bit. It was running okay, and then somewhere in the process the battery got killed, and we won't talk about how, but the battery got killed, and it was the original battery from 2007. It was still a maintainable style battery. That means it had the little twist off caps where you could go in and fill it with distilled water to maintain your battery level. So we replaced that, obviously. Found out that when you disconnect the battery on the Subaru, it forgets how to idle. So then it was stalling out at stop signs, and just generally not running right. It's idling under 500, not running well. So then found some stuff online about disconnecting the battery, turning ignition on, leaving it on for a certain time, turn it off, let it run, etc., etc., etc. It learns to idle again, and I think it did. It was running okay, but then it was overheating again. So I said, okay, maybe it's just burping a little more air, and topped off the coolant. It seemed to be fine, and then it wasn't again. So did some more troubleshooting, got it out on the highway at about 70 miles an hour, and it was just blowing white smoke out of the tailpipe. So pulled the Carfax, and she, the owner that had traded it in, had her radiator replaced just this April, and thermostat and a few other things. And then, so when I put two and two together, and you throw on the idea that someone was too lazy to actually take off a clamp, and in fact that's probably ruining that hose right there that's all scuffed up. Too lazy to actually remove the clamp, rather just put a second clamp on there. I think someone was troubleshooting this and diagnosed it wrong, and it was a head gasket all along that was leaking the coolant. But the first thing they did is start replacing other cooling system parts, and chances are that it didn't fix it, and the owner got so pissed off they traded it and got a new car. So tonight I'm going to start disassembly and hopefully get probably the radiator and fans out. I'm trying to get the drive belts. It has two drive belts, one for the air conditioning, strictly for the air conditioning, and then the one over here runs both the alternator and the power steering pump. So interesting that it doesn't have a timing chain, it has a timing belt, and that's what's behind that plastic cover right there. So the timing belt goes between your crankshaft, obviously, and your two camshafts on each side, but also the timing belt drives the water pump. So that's back there as well. And that stuff all comes as a kit with idler pulleys and all that stuff. So it's actually really easy to get to. It's suggested to do it at 100,000 miles. And since this is almost at 80, we're gonna knock that out while we're in here. But hopefully get the radiator drained, whatever's left in it, get it out tonight, get this front accessory stuff off, airbox, all that stuff disconnected. Hopefully even get the air intake off tonight, and then tomorrow get the pulley off the front here, get the cover off the timing belt, get that apart, and then finally get the heads pulled off each side. So follow along on my adventure, and I'll try to take some more pictures and video. So the coolant was our main tell about the head gasket at first, because even though it was a little low on oil when we bought it, it wasn't bad. We put a quart in, and it seemed to be fine. But now that I get under here and I get the little splash guard off the bottom of the engine area here, there's oil definitely everywhere. And let's see if we can see, and there's your tell there. I don't know if you can see that, but there's your, the nice thing is that's the exhaust manifold coming straight off the bottom, super easy to get to. And then that seam right next to that, that's your that's where your head gasket is, and that's obviously leaking oil. And when we did the oil change, God dang, I'm trying to keep my light right here. When we did the oil change, the oil filter was less than hand tight, the one that was on there. So I told Dominic, I said, yeah, that's where your little oil loss came from. But that's not the case. In fact, if I can get the light on it right, I don't know if that's focused. That's not focusing, is it? Anyways, there's your other head gasket right there, and it's obviously A, leaking, and B, it's leaking and dripping right off the end of the oil filter, which was something we noticed when we did the oil change right after we bought it. But I assumed it's because the filter was just loose, but no, it's because it's dripping right out of the head gasket right there, down out of the filter. And then you look back here, and like I said, it's just oil all over everything. So the coolant was the main tell on, like, yeah, the head gasket's bad, but now that I'm under here, that is for certain. So again, it's gonna be pretty easy, I think. You know, from the underside, you can see the valve cover is gonna be easy to get to. Again, exhaust manifold right there. Not too bad to work on, I don't think, so far. So I haven't gotten super far, but we made some room, got the battery out, got the air intake out, starting to work on getting the front stuff here. It's an adjustable tensioner right here, so that was really nice. You just yeah, loosen the bolt up and boom, belt comes right off. So I think my next step at this point is to drain some coolant and get this radiator and fan out of here. It's nice that it has electric fans, so I'm not dealing with a big serpentine belt system or anything. Just got a couple plugs down there and another one right down there, and the bolts up top here for the radiator, and of course obviously your hoses, and that thing will be out of there. So here's where we are, I think probably for the evening. And as you can notice, I'm like under headlamp. It's a little after 8 p.m. Was hoping to get the air conditioning compressor out, just not got disconnected or anything, just get this unbolted and moved over here to the battery area or something over there. But there's a freaking bolt. See it? There it is. Wait. There it is. There's a bolt back there that I can't get to without pulling the air intake, which I also hope to have done tonight, but I'm just kind of figuring things out and taking my time. So power steering pump still connected over there, just out of the way. Like I said, we got the radiator and fans off. That was part of the problem. The radiator actually has a freaking transmission cooler on a Subaru, so and it's a built-in part of it. I had hoped that, I mean, I suppose I could have, it wouldn't have helped. I had hoped it was a separate element. I could disconnect it from the radiator and just leave it in there, but that was not the case, so I had to pull the transmission lines before I could pull the radiator and fan. Other than that, the belts were easy. The tensioners are super easy to deal with. Just a easy engine to work on for the most part. I mean, like your oxygen sensors there and there, those are easy to get to. Just the way it fires sideways, that H-block configuration is tough, because you can see I don't have a lot of room between the unibody frame and the valve covers right there. And from what I understand, it'll be a puzzle getting the heads off with the bolts still in them. And I guess guys have gone through extreme lengths to drill out holes and stuff to pull the bolts through or what have you. I don't think we're gonna get to that. I think if we have to, we're gonna just loosen up some motor mounts and lift the engine from underneath. But all the air, everything past the throttle body is off. And then, so next step, 22 millimeter, get that off. Once I get that off, I can pull the cover off the timing belt right there, and over here is your water pump. So that's all behind that plastic cover. Camshaft there, and I think I get that undone, and then I'm into the valve covers at that point, and I can, so air intake, obviously air intake first. So project Fix the Subaru continues, night 2 of disassembly. Didn't get quite as far as I wanted Monday night, but the rain has let up today, and I think I should be able to get the heads off hopefully tonight. So as we left off Monday night, we had to get the crank pulley off, get the timing belt cover off. Next we'll be pulling that air intake, getting the air conditioning compressor out of the way, and then it is just the valve covers and the heads themselves, which I will probably have to disconnect motor mounts and lift this just a little bit to make that happen, because like I pointed out in my other video, there is not much room on the side of this, but it's too easy. Motor mount there up top, single one, pull that. There's two on the bottom, easy to get to, and I can lift this. Plenty of room in the firewall to get it up a little bit to get access to what I need. But what I want to point out real quick before I get back to work is, like high school friend Tony Garcia pointed out in one of the videos, he has had experience with the Subaru timing belt going bad and the catastrophic failure it creates. So they say you're supposed to do it between 80 to 100,000 miles, and this is just shy of 80, 78-ish, 79-ish maybe. And I don't think this thing had too much more life left in it. There's just cracks all over it. You flex those, you can see it's just cracked all over the place. So again, good time to do this right now. I got to pull this stuff off anyways. The good thing is you can get the timing belt kits, and they don't just come with the belt, they come with a brand new water pump down here. They come with your tensioner pulley right there, and your two idler pulleys here and here. That all comes in the kit, and so that stuff will all be replaced before this goes back together, and that is on its way in the mail right now. So I expect by the time I get back to the assembly, I should have that. So that's that. And there she is, the oil leak on the top side. Again, right at the head gasket. That's what you're looking at right there, that flat piece. That's your head gasket. Your intake head right there and there. This one not in as bad of shape. This one quite obviously leaking right here. Pooling on the block. So we've made it this far. So we got this all off. I don't have an impact wrench, so I had to use some trickery to get the pulley off the crankshaft. And like I said in that previous video, that belt's just was waiting to go. That stuff's coming off next here. Get all these pulleys, the timing belt, get that stuff off, and then start seeing about these head gaskets. But air intake is off, laying over there. On to the next step. So this is talking about the valve cover leaking and the oil getting down into the spark plug well. These are spark plug wells right here, and they've got these little rubber gaskets that seal them from the valve cover. So obviously I'm dripping a little. Obviously those go bad and you end up with oil down in the spark plug well. So here's where we're at so far. Right side, valve cover is off, and right here are our 1, 2, and 3 head bolts, and then obviously corresponding ones on the bottom, and I can see 2 of them. I can't see the back corner one, And that leads me to believe, once again, is again, I've got that much room. I think I'm gonna have to lift the engine up a little bit to get those all out, but we'll give it a shot and see. I do have a deep socket, so it might reach that back corner. We'll see how that fits in there. So one side uncovered, one to go on this side. And maybe I'll get that other valve cover off first, and then I'll worry about getting the heads. So, and here I am using the headlamp again. So did not, well, as you can see, did not get the heads out tonight. I have to stop for the night because while I was able to reach the top bolts on the heads just fine, I could not get to the bottom ones. It's too tight in there for the deep socket that I'm using. It's a 12.14 millimeter on those things. So, oh, there we go. So, well, I could get to the top ones. I couldn't get to the bottom ones, and of course, just cracking the top ones would be out of sequence, because you are supposed to sort of, you know, at least crack them loose in the same opposite sequence from the way you tighten them, which is sort of a you know, top left, bottom right, top right, bottom left, middle type deal. So the already broke loose the motor mount, but when I went to disconnect the exhaust manifold, while I could get to the flange on the driver's side, I didn't have an extension or the right combination of extension and sockets to get to the bolts on the passenger side. So I had a 14 millimeter nut on there, and I had a 14 millimeter deep socket, but it was 1/2 inch drive. My 1/2 inch drive extension is only the 3-inch one, so I have to either get a 3/8 drive deep socket or a longer 1/2 inch drive extension tomorrow. So but not a bad place to be. It's dark out. It's actually 40 degrees, so it's feeling a little chilly. And yeah, I'm not running to the store for a socket or extension right now. And I don't know if I want to be lifting the engine in the dark, just in case there's lines or any other connections that I'm missing that would ultimately have a potential of breaking or stretching or something. So that's where we're at for the night. So it looks like best case scenario, and I do have to get the dipstick off. Best case scenario, tomorrow night I have the heads out. I can have them Friday morning dropped off to hopefully be machined. And if I'm super lucky, they're done by the end of the day Friday, and I can get it put back together this weekend. Otherwise, pick them up maybe Monday or Tuesday, and then next week get it done in stages. So that's it for the night. Time to call it a day and have a cold one. And we have success, or at least one side success. Exhaust gasket. So yeah, I mean, I don't know how much of this damage I caused pulling it out. Let's see. Yeah, but this gasket, I mean, I didn't do that. This gasket was definitely failing. Which, I mean, hell, we already knew that. But, so there we go. Driver's side done. And I might have made a little bit of a mess, but we can clean that up. A little sawdust. And so what I ended up doing, like I was saying last night, a couple blocks of wood, jack under the oil pan, and then gently ratchet strap it over to, on this side it was over to the passenger side. Now I've switched over, and it's given me, it's raised it up maybe a couple inches, and then given me another good 2 to 3 inches of room between the head and the body here. So I'm about to get the other side done. And there you have it, folks. Disassembly is complete. I have 2 heads I need to clean up just a little bit, and then get to be machined. And then I've got cleaning up to do on the block to get ready for new gaskets, and probably clean up some of the mess under here from the oil and coolant leaks that have been happening, and in there and down there. That's horrible. It's definitely dripping oil on this side. Like I said, it was a quart low when we bought it, but of course, you know, you buy a used vehicle from a dealership, everything's been steam cleaned, and it's got a fresh oil change and a fresh air filter and everything else. So, you know, nothing to give away what was hiding inside. But that's all right. That's all right. We'll get it taken care of. Get it put back together, and it's got another 80 to 100,000 miles after that. So. Yeah, important part, once I get it back, just take my time. The last thing I want to do is mess up one of the gaskets, one of the new good gaskets as I'm putting it on. So I'll definitely take my time there. I'm just looking, it almost looks like there's more room on the passenger side. I'll have to check that when I get ready to put it back together. The driver's side was definitely harder to get out. Had the engine jacked up and the ratchet strap pulling it over towards the passenger side to give me as much room as possible. So I'll have to measure that. Maybe I don't need to do that on this side again. So that's that. Final night of disassembly. It was probably 5.5 hours total. 4, 5, maybe 6 hours, and all done with hand tools, ratchets, sockets, all 3 1/4 inch, 3/8, and 1/2 inch drive. Of course, you gotta have a couple BFHs, but that was it. No special tools, nothing neat other than, like I said, the jack to get the engine up off the motor mounts a little bit to give me some room. But and I did dribble some coolant down there. I gotta get cleaned up. So all right, we'll check back in once we start putting it back together. All right, the morning of assembly, and I say morning of, hopefully it's just one day. Just going in reverse order. So I'm starting on the passenger side, the right side of the block, which was the last piece I took off 2 nights ago. I just finished cleaning the surface of the block, so you definitely want to make sure there's no gasket material left on there. Get in there with some acetone, lacquer thinner, brake cleaner, stuff like that. Make sure all the oil is off the surface. Hit it with some green scrub pads, and use a razor blade if you have to. The razor blade should basically be able to run the edge of that surface without catching anything. You're going to see some discoloration and stuff still there, but you want to make sure it's nice and smooth. The edge of the razor blade will tell you if there's anything that could mess with the style of gasket you're using. So, got the heads back from the machine shop. I don't know if you remember what they look like when I took them off in those videos, but they are nice and clean and have been completely surfaced, pressure tested, and The valves all checked, and that was all done thanks to the good folks at ABP, Alaska Drag. I'm sorry, ADB, Alaska Drag Bike Machining LLC, and facilitated through the fine folks at Far North Rover and Auto Repair. Go see them for all your auto repair needs. Also sponsored by Black Rifle Coffee Company and Dollar Shave Club. So, the gasket, let me find my old gasket. All right, so these were the old gaskets, if you remember from the video. It's just a layered single steel piece with the coating on it. And I got the Felpro gasket kit. And so, as you can see, a big difference. So several, 1, 2, 3 layers in there, plus the coating, held together with the rivets at the outside corners. Those, of course, will be outside of the mating surface. Just a visible difference in quality. And of course, this came with everything you're gonna need plus some. So I got my exhaust gaskets here. There's stuff I probably don't need. This is going to be the intake manifold. Of course, you got your valve cover gaskets in here. So great gasket kit, 100 something bucks, I think, off Amazon. Got it for about half the price it would cost me to buy it in town. Not counting friends doing me favors if I ask. But so that's what we're getting ready to do. So we're about to throw the passenger side, get the gaskets. Going to go on the locating dowels here and here. So I can hang that on there. I'll do one final wipe down at the surface first, and I'm going to just put a light coat of oil inside the cylinder. And then I'll hang the gasket on there, and then get the head out of the floorboard over there. The head bolts, I went ahead and got brand new head bolts, Subaru OEM head bolts. Those are about 50 bucks for the kit. You'll notice that 2 of them, there's another one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, there it is. So these two have black heads. Those are going to be your center ones. Those are going to get torqued, 1 and 2. Those are going to get torqued to a slightly different spec in the end. All right, so I've got my Haynes manual all open to the page. So I have my specific sequence I have to tighten the bolts, as well as the torque sequence, which is like a 8-step process of taking it to a certain torque, backing it back off. You're essentially stretching and applying tension to the head bolts, so that they stay tight on there. So you're going to go through all that. Of course, apply a light coat of oil to the threads on the head bolts, as well as the washer head of the bolt surface area. So you get a very consistent torque reading with your torque wrench, as opposed to friction in there skewing what you're reading on your torque wrench. So, passenger side about to go in. All right, the passenger side all mounted up. Brand new Felpro head gaskets. Brand new Felpro valve cover gasket, and down there at the spark plug well is as well also. So have the driver's side mounted, but I haven't torqued it to spec yet. So I've got my little cheater card sitting here, of course, to keep me straight. That's all straight out of the Haynes manual, so I could keep my torque specs straight, and then the order in which the bolts get tightened. My preference, of course, would be you like some straight torque numbers instead of this back off 180 and 180 and add 90 and etc., etc. And that's degrees of bolt turn is what that is. Because there's just not so much room in here to get a good 180 swing with the breaker bar. So I'm doing it with a ratchet and a cheater bar as needed. So yeah, it just take me a couple minutes to get this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah, 8-step torque process done. And I'm cleaning things as I go, so then get the valve cover cleaned up, the new gasket in, and get that put on, and then I can get the engine. Alright, I think my last video got cut off. I was going underneath the vehicle, but that's okay. All I was saying is the next thing after I got both heads on now, driver's side, new head gasket, new valve cover gaskets, and I have lowered it back onto the motor mounts. Motor mounts are all connected, tightened down. The exhaust manifold is connected back up to the bottom of the heads. And then what I was saying is we're putting at some point during this process, we're putting a block heater in, and right behind the air filter on this side and right behind the water pump on this side, there are two drain plugs for the block that are one of them will be replaced with the block heater, which is kind of nice because you don't have to find and bang out a freeze plug. But it is a 14 millimeter, you know, hex bolt that's in there, so I'm gonna have to find one of those to get one of them out, but I don't need to do that right now. But then it's kind of nice because then the block heater just screws right in place of it, and you know, run the power cord up to the front. So very, very easy to install, super easy to install. So heads are in place. They were torqued to specs. The valve covers are on. Hopefully those gaskets, valve covers are so funny because the gaskets don't want to stay in place, you know, when you're putting them in place. So you gotta be really careful getting your bolts tightened up. But hopefully those are good and sealed. And next step is to bolt down the air conditioning compressor and not get hit by my wife backing out. And then once that's in place, it is the intake manifold. So hopefully still hoping that before it's dark tonight to have this thing running. Oh, we're getting closer and closer. All right, intake manifold's on. Bolts are all in place and snugged down. They are not tightened or torqued or anything yet. I'm gonna go through first and reconnect all these variety of connectors and tubes and fuel lines and brake booster, vacuum, and just all the stuff all over the place. Here's some more connections over here. They gotta get plugged in. Of course, we got this giant one right here. Did put a brand new coil pack on, just because why not? It was misfiring before we started this whole mess, so we do have a new coil pack, plugs and wires, because again, why not? So a lot of coolant to the throttle body, so a lot of stuff to get connected here. And then we'll go back and get the intake manifold tightened down to specs, but I'm not going to bother with that in case I find I've pinched a wire or have buried something under there that I need. That way I can whip it back off here quickly. Woo, getting there. 5:30, 6 o'clock at night, something like that. Got the front end pretty much put back together, except for some splash guards, little shields and stuff, but other than that, so I'll do the plug wires and plugs next, and then power steering, that's all hooked up. I gotta hook up the alternator still, and the, here we go. So that's coming under here. Coming under here like so. But gotta get that hooked up, and then get the radiator in and get that hooked up, fill the coolant, it's radiator stuff. Airbox still has to go on. That's it. That's all that's left for parts, and I don't have anything left over. So there's no leftover nuts, bolts, anything. Radiator goes in, airbox goes in, and you have to obviously fill it up with coolant, stuff like that. But and then battery has to go in. So we're almost there. Maybe another hour. We'll see. All right, as I wrote yesterday, getting to the timing belt was going to be fairly easy. So it's right there. I've pulled the electric fans. That's 3 screws, 2 wire plugs. Boom, that comes right out. Cover the radiator with some cardboard, keep it protected. Get the I've already got the crank pulley broken loose. These will all be inconvenient, but they're not in the way of pulling the cover. So I'm gonna get the cover off the timing belt and double check what could be wrong. Basically, when I started up last night, it just sounded like, sounded like the engine was trying to come apart. And I just think when I was installing the belt, I slipped a tooth or two, probably on one of the camshafts, and timing's off. Which obviously I don't want to run it like that, because now you got the chance of valves contacting pistons. This is what's called an interference engine. That means if the timing is off, or if the timing belt breaks while running, you're going to have your pistons crashing into your valves, and that will absolutely destroy the engine. There are engines out there, they're non-interference. The timing chain or timing belt goes, it's not a big deal. There's space in there where it doesn't bang apart. It just stops running right. Unfortunately, this is a design that will just flat out die if the timing belt is off, or it breaks while running, or anything like that. So I gotta get it fixed. Hardest part of the morning so far has been getting it off the ramps and pushing it into the garage, because I didn't want to start it, like I said. And I'm glad, just forever glad I did leg day on Friday, because my back and my legs are killing me with all this work. But I'm not messing around anymore. We're in the garage because it's raining off and on, and we're not playing with hand tools anymore. We're getting the air compressor going. So we're gonna knock this out real quick. I am fairly confident that I'm gonna find what I need to see in here and can get it fixed. Otherwise, my next video will be all like wah wah wah. All right, let me fire up the Super Dizzy vomit camera again. So here's what, let me try to, I don't know if I can get in here with this or not. So you see that mark on the belt. The brand new belt had markings to help you align it with marks on the crankshaft sprocket and then the camshaft sprockets. The marks on the belt are just there to help you, but you're looking for, this one has a little pink, but without the pink, you can see the notch in the middle. That notch is supposed to be lined up with the notch in the cover right there. And let's see if I can get light in here for you. So there's the notch on the crank sprocket, and it's just slightly off right there, so I would need to line that up just 2 millimeters, whatever. So those two, driver's side, left side of engine, crank is lined up. Timing should be fairly good on that side. However, oh, look at this guy. So that should be lined up with the with the casting in the middle right there. So obviously that's off by quite a bit. On the passenger side, right side bank. So yeah, timing was screwed, and that's why it sounded like a 0113 coming down the road with no rubber track pads on the track, just clanking away. So what I will have to do is pull the idler and idler pulleys and the tensioner right here. This is interesting. So it's a hydraulic tensioner. So when it was new, you see the hole in the body and a hole in that little hydraulic shaft there. Obviously there was a pin there that kept that in the closed position, if you will. And once everything was set up, you pull the pin, and then the hydraulic piece pushes against the engine block there and applies your tension. So I got to get that removed. I've got to get that plunger put back in place, which my understanding is just gently use a C-clamp to do that, and then push up whatever you can find, a thin Allen wrench or something, hex wrench in there. And then pull the belt and relay the belt, hopefully correctly. I don't know what happened. I know when I put it on, the marks were certainly lined up, but at some point, obviously it got off. So hopefully, not too many more issues this morning. I can get this off, redo it correctly, and still burn rubber. She is alive! No leaks so far. This is actually the second startup. Of course, the first one was ugly because there's like junk on the exhaust manifold and drips got in here and there and it just smoked and everything, but it was that timing belt. I still got a couple belt covers to throw on, but I wanted to leave them off so I could just kind of make sure everything's spinning like it should. So let's see. Okay, we're getting up to operating temperature. We have warm air coming out of the heater, so that's good. Okay, I'm going to burp it for cooling a little bit more. Make sure we don't have any air left in there, and double check for any leaks underneath, and then test drive time. Just rolled 70 miles an hour down the Seward Highway. 2 weeks ago, that would have overheated it badly. We are, dang, it won't focus. We're sitting, I know, be quiet. We're sitting at normal temperature. No check engine lights. The heater's blowing heat. Puppers is doing puppers things. And this thing is just running as smooth as can be. So, that ends this project, I guess, for now. Still gotta do the block heater.